Hello book lovers! Supply chain issues getting books to Australia along with a couple of other dramas have delayed my annual beautiful book review a bit this year, but I hope there are still some exciting discoveries coming up that solve your gift-giving dilemmas or at least tempt you for your own personal collections. And of course I'd love for you to share your favourites for this year in the comments below. As usual, all the books I feature do have beautiful insides, but this video focuses on those that also have beautiful outsides and special shelf appeal. Section timestamps and links to find the books are in the description box below, as well as a link to an even longer list of books with extra titles on my website. But enough blathering, let's just get straight into the books. We'll start with books for kids and timeless stories for the young at heart. First off, we have a beautiful edition of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, illustrated by Ashley Lovett. This illustrated adaptation has haunting charcoal work and closely follows the original tale with a slightly reworked bittersweet ending. It's ethereal and heartbreaking in the very best way. However, some may consider the illustrations a little bit too adult in style for young children, so have a look as I flick through here and make your own decision. Next I have another Hans Christian Andersen classic. This time it's a pop-up adaptation of The Snow Queen. This one is illustrated beautifully by Leslie Barnes. The story's been retold for children and the pop-ups are just magical and full of joy. Mina Lima have continued their awesome interactive children's classic series this year with The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. True to their style, the illustrations are vivid and colourful. The book has 9 interactive features which include removable green glasses and pop-ups and clickable silver shoes. It's gorgeous and clever, as are all the books in this series. This book here is a collector's edition of the Disney Twisted Tales series, and as far as I can tell it's only been released in Australia so far. The novel is called Part of Your World, and it's a reimagining of the Little Mermaid story set 5 years after the end of the original tale. This collector's edition has an updated cover design with metallic accents and blue sprayed page edges, but otherwise the insides look essentially the same as the paperback editions. There's another title in the series scheduled to come out in this collector's edition format next year, so it looks like they'll be continuing the redesigns at least for a few more books. This is the second book in the Folklore Field Guide series. It's called A Natural History of Magic by Poppy David with illustrations by Jessica Rue. The book has an embossed cloth cover with a ribbon marker and sprayed gold page edges. And inside, the text is presented as an introduction to famous magical characters and creatures, ostensibly written as a journal by a professor to his grandson, with summary information and delightful detailed sketches to enjoy. Red Gloves and Other Stories by Catherine Fisher was released around Halloween time, and it's a spooky collection of short tales that concern myths and folklore and magic. The stories are aimed at middle graders, and the illustrations by Anne Glenn add to the shivery atmosphere. First editions have red sprayed pages, so if you're thinking of getting a copy, it makes sense to do it early. Julia and the Shark by Kieran Millwood Hargrave was actually just recently announced as Waterstone's Book of the Year. It's a lovely book about a difficult topic, family and mental health. It's beautifully written by Hargrave and accompanied by gorgeous duotone black and yellow illustrations by Tom DeFreston, who are actually a husband and wife team. Some of the illustrated pages are translucent, which makes for a really interesting effect in the book. The story itself follows Julia, who moves to a lighthouse on a remote island for the summer, and how her scientist mother's desperate obsession with finding a shark threatens the family dynamic. The edition I'm showing here was actually a Waterstone special edition that had sprayed page edges, but the normal standard editions do have the same translucent illustration features on the inside. The special hardback edition sold out, but they will be doing a paperback run with sprayed edges as well shortly. And just a note, if you particularly like sprayed edges or other fancy features like this in books, I should mention I actually run a page on my website which lets you know about these books ahead of time so you don't miss out on them. I'll link to that page below as well in case it's something that you're interested in. Together by Luke Adam Hawker is one of those delightful, ageless philosophical picture books that could be aimed at children or adults equally. It's obviously inspired by social distancing during the pandemic, and it illustrates the emotional roller coaster of this time period as seen through the eyes of a man and his dog. It's beautiful, and I particularly enjoyed the level of detail in the double page spreads. Now, we didn't get a new illustrated Harry Potter this year, but instead we've got a compilation called Harry Potter A Magical Year, with illustrations by Jim Kay. It's got gorgeous artwork and sketches from the first 4 illustrated Harry Potter books, and there are some particularly amazing full-colour spreads. There are also fun touches included like different characters' birthdays, but to be honest, it's really a book you buy for the art rather than the text. The Hatmakers by Tamsin Merchant is the first book in a new magical series about magical milliners, and this UK edition has one of those delightful hidden illustrated covers under the dust jacket. The story is illustrated throughout by Paula Escobar, and it's an enchanting fantasy adventure set in London that has twists and mysteries, bravery and resourcefulness, and the importance of following your heart. It's a lovely middle grade novel that's fun for adult readers too, and the sequel Mapmakers is due out pretty soon as well. In honour of the 95th anniversary of Winnie the Pooh, Jane Rawdon has created a collection of sweet stories written in the style of A. Milne called Once There Was a Bear. As you might guess from the title, it takes us back to the beginning when Winnie the Pooh was first purchased for baby Christopher Robin. I thought the writing was sensitively done and the illustrations are quite true to the original style of Ernest Shepard as well. This year, we were lucky enough to get two Mina Lima interactive classics. This is the second volume in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. Once again, we're treated to their beautiful graphic style with full-colour illustrations throughout, and 8 interactive elements, including the Whomping Willow and travelling through the Floo network. Of course, it's delightful. I'm collecting this whole series, and I really look forward to each new volume as it comes out. Here's another short novel with a hidden cover. This is Cold Hearted by Serena Valentino, the latest in Disney's Villains series of retellings that feature other characters from classic fairy tales. This one's a Cinderella reimagining that explores how her stepmother, Lady Tremaine, is hardened over time to take on the stereotypical role of evil stepmother. The False Rose is the third book in the Murderer's Ape series by Jakob Vegelius, a series that's translated from the original Swedish. They're delightful classic-style adventures, complemented by pen and ink illustrations throughout the books. I think it's a really fun series, although you don't have to have read the earlier books to enjoy this one. The book stars Sally Jones, an anthropoid ape that works as a ship's engineer, who gets entangled in a mystery surrounding the owner of a rose-shaped necklace. The characters travel from Lisbon to Glasgow, and readers can enjoy some old-fashioned escapism as they accompany them on this trip. Moving now to non-fiction children's titles, The Sky by Hélène Druvert is a massive oversized volume that takes readers on a soaring journey through birds and clouds via their atmosphere into the planets and stars and beyond. It covers natural themes from pollination to weather and flying machines. It makes great use of clever laser cutouts all the way through. Now, I'm not really sure if the book's intended for children or adults because the pages are quite delicate, but it's usually being put out with a picture book, so I've included it here. This is another volume in the popular Magical Unicorn Society series, Unicorns, Myths and Monsters. It's a collection of illustrated stories of unicorns, dragons, phoenixes, kraken and all other sorts of magical creatures. The text is fairly simple and it's obviously aimed at younger readers, but anyone will enjoy the beautiful brightly coloured graphic illustrations. Dinosaurs and Other Prehistoric Life by DK Books is a beautifully illustrated dinosaur book. Each of the species features a fossil photograph, a stunning hand-drawn illustration, and associated information about the creature. There are lots of incredible facts and fascinating tidbits to entertain and share with others. It's actually part of a longer series of DK natural history books, and they're all fantastic titles actually. They're really nice, informative coffee table books which have photographs and beautiful illustrations as well to give you the best of both worlds. In a similar vein, Oceanarium is the latest in the Welcome to the Museum series. These are more massive oversized books and they're just gorgeous explorations, this one obviously featuring the underwater world. The titles in these series feature stunning, intricate artwork and the text is always written by experts. In this case, the book is written by Loveday Trinick, who's a marine biologist from the UK's National Marine Aquarium, and the gorgeous illustrations are by Tegan White. The whole series is stunning, but they are really huge and you will definitely need to clear some tall space in your bookcase if you're planning to collect them. Scissorella is an unusual picture book that's an interesting combination of biography and fairy tale retelling, giving a modern feminist twist to the Cinderella story, inspired by the life and work of the German film director Lotte Reiniger, who was a pioneer of silhouette animation. The book doesn't actually have as much actual die-cut paper within the story as I had expected. There are a couple of fold-out pages that are quite pretty, but essentially the illustrations by Laura Barrett are based on cut paper designs. I'll finish up this section with the Macmillan Fairy Tales collection. This is a beautiful hardback treasury of classic fairy tales from around the world. The stories are quite accessibly written and they're accompanied with a number of Golden Age illustrations. Mostly these are blue sketches or black and white images, but there are also a small number of full-page colour illustrations throughout as well. The cover's foiled and die-cut and the page edges are gold foiled as well, although they're a little bit fragile because I managed to scratch mine just with my fingernail by accident. It's got a ribbon bookmark and it's also in series with the Jungle Book and the Alice Treasury that Macmillan released over the last couple of years as well. Next up we have Myths and Legends. Now this year saw publication of so many beautiful books in this genre. I've limited myself to just a few here for this video, but I've actually got a whole lot more on the online list and my own library. I just didn't want this video to go too long. I might do a separate video showcasing some more of my favourite myths and legends if there are some of you out there who, like me, really love this genre. Just let me know in the comments if you're interested. But let's get started here with this retelling of Medusa by Jessie Burton. It's a feminist retelling of the famous Greek myth, which basically means it's strongly grounded in the original myth, but explores Medusa's backstory and character rather than simply making her to be a villain. For me, one of the things that make this book really special are the stunning illustrations by Olivia Lomenick-Gill. They're really gorgeous, and the whole book is just put together really beautifully. It's such a lovely production. Next up I have this new annotated Arabian Nights. This collection has original translations of a selection of the most important 1001 night stories from the Arabic and French, and they include Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves and the Voyages of Sinbad, amongst others. As well as providing a really vivid, readable and lyrical translation, there are interesting scholarly explanations of the tales included, and there are also 300 historical and contemporary illustrations and artwork from around the world to accompany the text. It's an excellent volume. This one here is just a really delightful little book. It's a small paperback, but it's beautifully designed. It's called The Book of the Raven by Angus Hyland, and it explores the visual and literary life of ravens. It references literary works from Edgar Allan Poe to Game of Thrones. There's lots of intriguing information. It's an excellent clear layout with just fantastic artwork, and I loved learning more about the legends and stories. Storyland's a retelling of British myths by Amy Jeffs. As obvious from the title, it's a book about stories and fantastical tales, but one of the things that makes this book particularly special are the woodcut illustrations that are throughout the text. The author's an art historian and a printmaker, and her passion for those two things really come through clearly in the book. You feel like you're travelling through time, enjoying both a scholarly background as well as fantasy elements of myths and legends from around the country, and particularly those with a literary bent. I didn't read it from beginning to end all in one sitting, but I chose to enjoy it chapter by chapter. It was just one of those sorts of books. And I really appreciated the prints throughout the book. They were shadowy and graceful, and they really did well to capture that sense of mystery. These next two are reprints of what were originally larger format picture books, but they've now been released in really delightful pocket format versions. Jackie has a lyrical writing style and a beautiful magical illustration style that are perfect complements to fairy tale retellings. These volumes are quite small and thick, but they're actually a pleasure to read. And that, of course, is one of the most important things when you're looking at a beautiful book. This collection of Russian folktales is illustrated by Dina Mertalapova with a really whimsical, enchanting folk art illustration style that's just perfect for these stories. Although it's completely standalone, it is also part of a larger folklore series by Chronicle Books. I'll do a separate video on all the books in this series because all of them have beautiful artwork by different illustrators and the stories are all quite accessible. This book of Norse myths by Matt Rouse retells classic Viking mythology with gorgeous, profuse illustrations throughout by Katie Ponder. It's actually a companion volume to an earlier book put out by DK last year on Greek myths. This one has a really good selection of myths covering lots of different gods and creatures and settings from Norse mythology. The book's separated into sections which include additional information about the gods and goddesses and other figures. This is a retelling of Greek myths, the classic myths which star Athena and Helen and Circe and Penelope, recounted as if they were seen as being woven into textiles by the women who feature in the tales. It's illustrated by Chris O'Philly with sparse line drawing at the beginning of every chapter. One of the really nice things about this book is the way Charlotte Higgins has woven the stories together so they bounce off each other in a really interesting way. And the beautiful layout and format of the book absolutely reflect that care and attention to the contents inside. Last but not least in this collection, I'd love to show you Faeries of the Faultlines by Iris Compier. This book gave me such strong vibes of Brian Froud and Alan Lee, but the artist has claimed her own space with these luminaries. It's just a simply enchanting look at the fairy creatures that inhabit the Faultlines, with elaborate and well thought out text that complement the breathtaking illustrations. The whole volume's really beautifully made too. The pages are thick and luxurious, and the book itself is bound in cloth under the dust jacket with a gold embossed title. It's gorgeous. Next up, I want to look at classic novels that are released by publishers in series binding. We'll start with the Chiltern Classics, who are running a release schedule of about 8 or so titles every year. I've actually done a review of this series before because I think they're really delightful books. They're beautifully made, they've got gilded edges, they're really heavy weight and thick paper, and the covers are embossed with stunning three-dimensional designs. I'll show The Secret Garden here because it was one of my favourite covers from this year's releases. Another series I've reviewed before is the Seasons Classics collection by Thomas Nelson. This year saw both spring and fall or autumn collections released, so now all the seasons have been covered. The books in each collection are chosen because their text reflects the seasonal setting. The volumes have laser-cut dust jackets, which are very delicate, so they come in a protective plastic cover. The case of the book is textured with foil stamping, and there are decorative pull-out quotes in the text. Each book's limited to 10,000 copies. The books in these two series come with die-cut bookmarks that match the cover design as well. I'm going to show Sherlock Holmes here because that was one of the spring titles. The Marjolein Bastin Classics Collection is a new series that first came out earlier this year, and I showcased it Pride and Prejudice in a previous video. Other titles she's done in the same vein are Jane Eyre, Emma, Sense and Sensibility, and Wuthering Heights. These are paper-bound hardbacks, but one of the special things they all have in common is removable ephemera throughout the book, like letters and maps or stories and postcards. Many of the pages are also illustrated with small watercolours of what look like pressed leaves or flowers throughout the book. They're absolutely delightful volumes, and the interactive elements make them really fun to read. I highly recommend all of them. We also saw a couple of new titles released in the Beehive Books Illuminated Editions collection this year. These are really beautifully produced luxury and oversized editions of classic fiction. They come in really elaborate decorative slipcases, they've got stunning bespoke contemporary illustrations. I can't do them justice in a short space, so I'll just show you a sneak peek of the blazing world here, and I'll do a separate video for the rest of the collection because they're just fantastic. I promise to give you more on these later. Jumping into more classic fiction, the Letters edition of Little Women, edited by Barbara Heller, is as beautifully done as her earlier version of Pride and Prejudice. The letters and papers are imaginative renderings of the March family's correspondence that are placed in glassine envelopes throughout the book, and they provide a new fun addition to enjoying the book. The letters are really true to the different characters, and they're provided as facsimiles that are well researched and true to the time period. I've got a couple of new classic volumes illustrated by the wonderful watercolours of Robert Ingpen to share next. This first one is the tale of Robinson Crusoe, in which young, impulsive Robinson defies the advice of his parents and runs away to sea, where he's plagued by misfortune at every turn. Next we have the illustrated Gulliver's Travels, which is the classic story of the ship's surgeon who set off on the high seas in search of adventure and encounters the tiny Lilliputians, the Brobdingnag giants, the philosophical Houyhnhnms, and the brutish Yahoos. I love Ingpen's illustrations, and he's put out a whole lot of different classics that all have this similar style. This one here's a new edition of Animal Farm, the classic Revolution tale, which has illustrations by Chris Mould throughout. Adam Silvera recently released a collector's edition of his beloved YA novel, They Both Die at the End, which coincided with the announcement that he's writing a couple more books set in the same world. This collector's edition is pretty much a standard hardback, but it's got a shiny gold cover and some bonus material, including an interview with the author. Now, before finishing this section, I want to add in a couple of small poetry volumes, and this edition of the Goblin Market is absolutely divine. This is Rossetti's poem about Lizzie and Laura, who are tempted by the fruit sold by the goblin merchants, and it's just beautifully illustrated on every page. It even fills the last few pages at the back with a couple of bonus poems. It's supposed to be the start of a new poetry series, and I sincerely hope they do more like this. I was also really taken with this delightful edition of The Owl and the Nightingale by Simon Armitage. This is a Middle English tale about a battle between the two title birds, simultaneously eloquent and philosophical and ridiculous. The verse here is enlivened with decorative initials as well as several full-page illustrations by Clive Hicks Jenkins. Next, I'd like to call out a couple of my favourite fantasy titles from this year. This is the 10th anniversary edition of Ben Aronovich's urban fantasy Rivers of London. It's a very atmospheric London-based series about a modern-day British policeman who discovers he can talk to the dead and gets drafted into the Magical Investigation Unit. This anniversary edition is a little bit light on. It's got paper boards, but it has new mapped end papers and a new introduction from the author. And it's a great series. I recommend it. Here's my favourite graphic novel of the year that I bought, Wika by Thomas Day, illustrated by Oliver Ledoux. I'm a sucker for fairy tale retellings, and I adored the lush Baroque-style steampunk fantasy setting of this volume. It is a bit of a fever dream though, and I should warn you there's a fair bit of nudity. If you're on the lookout for a new, inexpensive edition of Dune, the new Masterworks edition was recently released, and this one has an introduction by Hari Junsru. If you can get it though, the book I'm showing here is the Waterstones exclusive edition of the Masterworks book, which also has purple sprayed page edges and a bronzed planetscape stencilled on the sides. Lots of fun. Obviously in the fantasy section, I have to mention J. Christoph's dark fantasy Empire of the Vampire. There were no less than 14 different special editions released of this title, which speaks volumes about its popularity. But even the most standard hardback edition is quite special. They all include some beautiful decorations and artwork by Bon Orthwick. If you like a bit of horror, the second volume of Francois Berenger's simply beautifully illustrated edition of the Lovecraft tale At the Mountains of Madness was released this year. These volumes are oversized and feature stunning, fantastical, gorgeous alien landscapes. He also illustrated a companion edition of The Call of Cthulhu. Now, I'm not much of a horror reader myself, but I simply couldn't resist these. They are beautiful. Next, we have a couple of gorgeous illustrated Philip Pullman volumes with woodcuts by Chris Wormell. This is the novella Lyra's Oxford, which is as lovely as you'd expect from Wormell's earlier work illustrating the series. We also got the second volume in the His Dark Materials series, The Subtle Knife, which is again a stunningly illustrated companion to the first volume. I'm showing here the UK edition, and I assume the US edition will be released early next year. A quick click here of this adorable deluxe edition of Bram Stoker's Dracula with Edward Gorey's fantastic illustrations. It's got a velvety flocked cover and the two-colour artwork Gorey created for his stage adaptation. My copy's still lost in the post, but I've seen this edition in the shops and it is definitely a wonderful edition if you're looking for a fun copy of Dracula for your collection. And I really enjoyed this fantastical book from Eye of Newt Press. It's a gorgeously illustrated magical fantasy world that's designed as a stunning coffee table book, purportedly put out by the Gwelf Council for Tourism and Trade. If you happen to play D&D, it's a fantastic campaign resource, but anyone who loves fantasy art will definitely enjoy immersing themselves in this world. I always like to include some beautiful non-fiction and reference titles, and this year I'll start with Taschen's second volume in the Library of Esoterica, Astrology. You don't have to be a believer to enjoy these volumes. They provide an interesting history and explore the symbolic meaning behind images that range from illuminated manuscripts to contemporary artworks. Big, hefty volumes, but certainly fascinating to dip into. And another esoteric volume is this visual archive of tarot and divination cards by Laetitia Barbier. Again, we've got an interesting historical look here at 500 years of figurative card decks that are created or used for fortune telling and divinations and oracles, and explores their iconographic roots. And the embossed decorations on the front and back covers of this book add a really special touch. Around the World in 80 Plants by Jonathan Drury is a companion to his earlier book on trees. Both are excellent. They take readers on a trip across the globe and bring science to life in text and image, revealing how intricately the plant world is entwined with human history and culture and folklore. They're perfect for dipping into and reading an entry whenever the fancy takes you. If you're a Brontë fan, this latest volume in the Illustrated Letters series has excerpts and photographs of letters and sketches, and it tells the story both of the real world of the Brontës at Haworth Parsonage, their home on the edge of the lonely Yorkshire moors, and of the imaginary worlds they spun for themselves in their novels and poetry. If, like me, you can't visit the real place anytime soon, this is the next best thing. And this, I think, is one of those perfect gifts for book clubbers. Mental Floss's collection of essays titled The Curious Reader contains gorgeous visual spreads. They've got details and trivia about classic novels and stories about their authors and their life. The text is fun and lively, and it covers a lot of different books, including classic and contemporary titles. Now onto a couple of fun Christmas tales. The Very Merry Murder Club is a diverse collection of short mysteries, murders and frosty adventures for middle graders, with a fun hidden cover under the dust jacket. Since it's an anthology of different authors, the quality of the stories does vary, but I think the first story with an autistic lead is the real standout here. The Christmas Pig's a lovely tale about the special power that favourite toys have when we're children. It's a really cute story with illustrations by Jim Field, and the hardback has a lovely gold embossed design on the boards under the dust jacket. If you're looking for some bookish gifts, these next two are some that I've chosen to give this year. I found these embossed leather journals really cheaply, so I'll make sure to link them below because I've seen them sold at a huge markup through Instagram and Facebook. The leather covers are thick and genuine. The The embossing's deep and luxurious, and they even come beautifully wrapped. You can buy them in portrait or landscape layout, and they're filled with blank pages that are securely sewn into the spine. I don't think the papers are archival quality, but they are really lovely for the purposes I'll be using them for. This box of postcards features artwork by Jackie Morris from the beautiful books The Lost Words and The Lost Spells. I love boxes of cards like these because you can use them all year for any sort of event, and these are just lovely watercolour illustrations. And finally, I promise we're almost at the end of this much longer than anticipated video. I wanted to finish with a couple of special titles that are a bit more expensive than your usual hardback. This edition of The Great Gatsby is from a new Canadian private press called Century Press. It's bound in sheepskin leather that's upcycled from the fashion industry, which means it feels buttery soft, and the cover design is gold stamped onto the cover. The text is letterpress, printed on premium quality paper, and it's got a really nice impression of the text. Of course, it's Smith sewn and it's really very well constructed. The price is super reasonable for a limited edition book of this quality, so get in quick before this first title of theirs sells out. This delightful little volume is the Folio Society's new Charles Van Sandwyk title, one of the illustrators I specially collect. It's a sweet pocket-sized accordion booklet that follows the painter mouse on a whimsical journey. The backside of the story features several new illustrations especially made for this edition. And finally, another Folio Society set. This is the Howl's Moving Castle series by Diana Wynne Jones, the final volume of which was released this year. The books are enclosed in decorative slipcases, and stunning illustrated bindings are complemented with beautiful illustrations that accompany the text. It's a magical story, and if you only know the tale from Miyazaki's fantastic film, you'll find the books have so much more to offer. Huge thank you to anyone who managed to stick through to the end of this video. It's really special to think I can connect with other book-obsessed friends out there in internet land via YouTube. I genuinely would love to hear what books you found to be really special publications this year in the comments. And if there are any of the genres I covered in this video you'd like to see more of. As promised in the beginning, most of the books are linked below to help you find the right editions. I do have more recommendations on the website if you aren't yet completely exhausted after this marathon video. Till next time.